also on our part sure that South Africa will put more emphasis on perspective and concerns and needs of developing countries rather than developed countries. So on that note, and they also, we could see that they also share our frustration on government of India not coming up with a clear position on what they will be talking in COP17, what are their negotiating points, what are non-negotiables for them. And it's very uncomfortable for us to see other countries perceiving India as a stumbling block in climate negotiations. And they said that India is one of the countries which is not doing anything in terms of trying to facilitate negotiations and trying to come to a solution. They sort of appreciated the proactive engagement of Jairam Ramesh while he was the Minister of Environment and Forest, but now they say that they are not very sure that how the new minister is going to respond to the developments and what will be the sort of position of government of India in coming COP17. We are also very concerned about that, so we would be very interested to know that how members in the parliament see India's engagement in international negotiations, not only in international negotiations, but also in domestic actions of government of India on climate change, and whether they think that this is adequate or not. And also that there has been minimal debate in parliament on climate change policies and position of government of India in international negotiations. So we would be very keen to hear your reflection on these aspects from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ajay, and a very good evening to all those who are present here. I think, first of all, thank you for inviting me and also starting things on time. You know, I'm one of those parliamentarians who wants to always reach on time and finish on time, and because we have back-to-back meetings, and even though Parliament is not really working, but parliamentarians are working. So, I mean, obviously the two don't match, and I think there's a general perspective in the nation that Parliament is the stumbling block, if you want to call it that. But then there are intractable problems, and those which there are intractable problems, and those intractable problems somehow get flow over into our system, and somehow the system ends up in what is known as a logjam, and so that's the way it is. But coming down to the various points that you have listed, I think there is a perspective all over the world that India is dragging its feet. But if you see the way we have had engagement in the past, that is within Parliament with Jairam Ramesh, I must say that he was one of those ministers who actually tried to take Parliament along and therefore had a series of discussions with Parliament and before. Now there is no oversight on climate issues because somehow the other Prime Minister's action plan, National Action Plan on climate change is also one of those what I would call as top-down approaches, which hasn't got any legislative sanction. It doesn't therefore, it is just part of the Ministry of Environment and Forests, one of its agenda items, and therefore functions as if it works. But I think it's too serious a matter to be left at that. And that was reflected in the kind of discussions that and the kind of debate that went on when just before the, I think it was the Copenhagen meeting in which Jairam Ramesh had, ventured to go. I think that was the Copenhagen meeting, and before that there was and then I think even some parliamentarians also accompanied the minister to actually witness and to see what happens. Now, ever since that time, I think the mood in the world has also changed. because of the kind of economic slowdown or meltdown or whatever you want to call it. Some kind of stagnation is there right across the world that we are aware. But more importantly, I think the mood is impinged upon the fact that people are now demanding all across the world, from every part of the world, the demand of people is for more equity, sharing of resources. They are demanding, and so this is a new mood, and so therefore this poses fresh challenges for policymakers. I mean, if you look at what we call as the Arab Spring, the movement across the Middle East. If you see the mood which is reflected in the Occupy Wall Street protests, if you see our own Anna Hazare movement out here. Now these all reflect in their own way, it manifests the kind of deep-seated, I think, frustration of I don't want to use that catchphrase, but it seems very, very appropriate here. The Aam Aadmi, which is so it manifests, that frustration manifests in this kind of these kinds of movements. Now, if it may be directed, but it's basically directed against the establishment. It's directed against the government. It's directed against parliament. It's directed against those who are supposedly the people who are supposed to make public policy which really deliver public goods and services. And so I think that kind of mood, now juxtapose that mood with what's happening in the kind of discussions and the way the discussions are going. As far as I know, the discussions are that those who have taken up so much of what we call as the budgeted climate space, the headroom, those who have taken it before us and have actually created what is known as the developed countries, I think they are trying to slip out of their responsibilities. It's one of those things where you know very well that the responsibility, taking on the responsibility and then taking effective action in order to somehow or the other ensure that the rest of the developing world also get enough headroom. But I think because it is collective in that sense, I think we need to therefore worry about, in this kind of collectivism and in this kind of discussions, which is, to my mind, painfully slow, what kind of the fairness, what kind of equity, what kind of equality are we going to actually see? We've already ushered in the 7th million child. She happened to be a girl child, she happened to be in UP, and so therefore you understand that there were several messages which came out of that. But more importantly, I think between China and India, I think we will be having probably along with South Asia, we'll be having a third of humanity in not so distant future. Now, if a third of humanity actually does not take responsibility of the future, then I think there is something definitely wrong. So therefore, I would argue that it's time we took time to actually debate this thing out. But I think Parliament, and I say it with a sense of real anger and frustration, Parliament is too occupied with other issues which seem to be impinging upon Parliament's time. There are, if you believe it or not, there are hundreds of bills waiting to be passed. And not only hundreds of bills waiting to be passed, it's also hundreds of bills which are waiting to be enacted. I mean, in terms of given the rules framed, and then they need to be put out there and start working on. So therefore, I think it's all in all there seems to be a burden which is now many of us are carrying that burden. Those who, I mean, whether I like it or not, I am part of that domain. I come here as a parliamentarian, but a parliamentarian, I carry the burden of parliament. We would like to work. We'd like to work long hours. We'd like to work and see that everything is, hammered out. But somehow the other, the politics of our country, which way it is headed, is anybody's guess. So I would basically say that efforts such as these need to be further enhanced. Just yesterday only, I was at another meeting where people were asking me. It was in the microfinance sector, and I was with the group on Southern, and they were asking me how would we get the attention of parliamentarians so that the microfinance bill can be accelerated, because it is causing too much of problems. It's causing too many problems because there's no legislation, and since legislation is waiting now. Similarly, something as important as this needs to be looked into, and since the effect of climate change is actually not being, I mean, there are things like, we are seeing the tsunamis, or you're seeing some of the climate change patterns which the scientists have been warning. They are all over us, but I guess we as a polity do not really understand. We only will take the cues in case they are immediate and emergent. If they are just there, it happens, it is going to impinge upon us tomorrow, then we would probably take action, and but we will not take cognizance of the medium term or the long term in that sense. And this, unfortunately, lies in the realm of the long term. It is wisdom, and I don't think we are showing any form of wisdom just yet. So, to sum up, I would say that it would look as if that we are not doing much, but on the other hand, I think there are many parliamentarians who are asking that all this come within the ambit of parliament oversight. In fact, there are some conferences coming up in which parliament's oversight functions are going to be discussed in much greater detail. Somehow or the other, our parliament's oversight on the executive is not quite as good as it ought to be. This is a well-documented feature. It has been written about. People know about it, and so therefore, the oversight on issues such as this would also be therefore quite marginal. But there are people like us there are many people there are some 70 or 80 parliamentarians in the Speakers Forum on Global Warming and Climate Change. We have been in some way pushing on an agenda which will allow for greater oversight, also for legislation, so that actions such as the climate change, Prime Minister's action on climate change would get greater meaning, and states would be consulted, and from states it goes down to the panchayats, and so that from the ground up we start building much of the actions that need to be taken, rather than there is some expert somewhere who says that, listen, you need to do this, and I think then everything will be okay. I think in a country like ours with 1.25 billion people, it won't work. It just won't work. As India, we need Indian solutions, and I think, in my opinion, we don't lack the kind of the groundswell of action, innovation, and a lot of action research is actually out there. It's out there, and it's just that we are myopic. I think the government system, at least the executive, seems to be highly myopic in this manner. And so if there is parliament oversight, then we would be in a position to question that more effectively and see that the power of the people is actually harnessed in this way. So with those thoughts, I will stop there, and in case there are any questions, I'll be very, very happy to answer. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर. इस बीच में हम लोगों से श्री अनिल दवे जी जो कि माननीय सांसद हैं वो भी जुड़ गए हैं, उनका हार्दिक स्वागत है. श्री प्रदीप टमटा जी माननीय सांसद हैं उत्तराखंड से, उनका भी हार्दिक स्वागत है. डॉक्टर संजय पासवान जी फॉर्मर यूनियन मिनिस्टर हैं, उनसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि आगे आ जाएं. सर आपका भी स्वागत है. एंड वी आर डेफिनेटली होपफुल दैट with time and with members like you in the parliament, we will be definitely able to raise the level of oversight and in parliamentary engagement over climate change policies. पीटी राय साहब को 5:40 में जाना है, तो उनसे अगर हमारे कुछ सवाल हो, अगर हम कुछ पूछना चाहें तो पूछ सकते हैं, और उसके बाद ये चर्चा हम लोग जारी रखेंगे.
I am Dr. Sarla Bupana, former civil servant. Now I represent NGOs and farmers. We are aware of 7 or 8 separate expert groups that were formed for tackling climate change. Any idea what's happened to them? In that some of them were more active than others. Agriculture was not active at all. But some were active. But then next time I went to the Planning Commission, they felt they had no directions. So could we get some highlight on it?
See, what you have just mentioned is precisely the point. Now, if by executive fiat you create these expert bodies, now who holds those expert bodies accountable in terms of the outcomes? In terms of, say, timely outcomes and in terms of the quality of outcomes. I think that really doesn't happen. So if there is oversight, then these questions can be asked at least in the oversight mechanism that Parliament has developed over time, which are, one is the questions, second are all the kinds of motions that we bring in, and third is third and most important are the standing committees, which are attached to different ministries. So a question like this would be very, very relevant to ask, and so therefore it would that kind of oversight would happen. But today, because it is either done through the Planning Commission or it is done through some form of executive fiat, it will never come in terms of an oversight. So to answer the short point is that I really don't know where it is. But now that you've told me, we'll try and see if we can put a question.
This is on the possibility of pilots on the adaptation program. I was just with a group of farmers last week, उत्तरांचल से, झारखंड से, उत्तर प्रदेश से, जो बहुत एक्साइटेड थे कि अपना रोल क्लाइमेट चेंज में वो देख पाएँ. सस्टेनेबल फार्मिंग प्रैक्टिस करती हैं वो. और एक कभी अदिति कपूर की रिसर्च में एक रिकमेंडेशन थी कि लोकल अडेप्टेशन प्लान जो बने उसमें जेंडर रोल को भी देखा जाए. तो how can we approach supposing the mission or state apparatus to look at pilots for adaptation and look at gender role in that?
I think there are a number of ways, because the climate change mechanism has actually filtered down to the states. I think one is you can actually directly write to the states. But the state mechanisms, let me warn you, are very, very weak. Why are they weak? Because they get appropriated by state level bureaucrats. They don't have any political mandate, and so therefore the voice of the people normally doesn't reach. And so then you are at the mercy of the bureaucrats. Now, if the bureaucrat likes you, then the bureaucrat can show that he is doing or she is doing good work, then you are in a position, well positioned to get it. So maybe that's one way. People have found ways and means of how to position themselves. But there is the other way is to actually write directly to the Prime Minister. It is and if you approach your member of parliament, then I think it is quite simple to actually connect you onto this kind of a process. Because if it is good enough and if it is scalable, then I think the Prime Minister would definitely be very, very interested. And and I think it is important that if there is something going on which is scalable, because I think for India, anything, if we're talking about adaptation, if we're talking about any form of action research, even if it means, and then giving it a gender, look, I think, and it has to be scalable, so that then it can be replicated right across the country, and then we are in a position to see some form of impact at the end of it. And I think, just listening to you gives me a lot of inspiration.
I don't know whether these 8 groups you are mentioning are the missions, or there are expert groups on other areas, because as we know, under the NAPCC National Action Plan, there are 8 missions. 8 missions.
So that's the one.
And those mission documents, we were told earlier when the NAPCC came in without anybody knowing, 3.5 years ago almost, June 30, 2008. In fact, none of the civil society or even expert groups knew.
Nobody knew, but it was a way of telling the global world outside that, look, we're doing something. We have this huge exercise going on.
And the more disturbing thing is, I'm coming to the sort of suggestion after this. Most disturbing thing is at 2 levels. Because we were told NAPCC is just the framework. The 8 missions will chart out the course. Actually, all the 8 missions, the way they have done it, because we have been following it up from this larger group, UN Copenhagen Coalition also. It has been, the nodal ministry is writing to the line departments, and they are getting responses from the line departments, and the action plan, mission plans are more or less ready. In fact, water, solar mission, energy enhanced energy efficiency, all these have been accepted also, without any public consultation. But the third point that you said, you can approach the states, because all the states are supposed to come out with their SAPCC, State Action Plan on Climate Change. 18 have finalized their draft, 18 states. And we have been pushing the state machineries for the last 2 years. And from our experience, only 6 states we have been able to do a little bit, and you will be happy because one of the states which accepted that public consultation is needed is Manipur. In fact, Sikkim, there was nothing, no response. Nagaland flatly refused us, saying it's a government document, why should we share? Uttarakhand ex-minister is there, our experience, he can state. The problem is, we are not concerned only that civil society do not have a voice. We are also concerned the missions, the parliamentarians are ignorant about this, they don't know, there is no discussion. The state action plans, and I must warn this, state action plans are overarching plans. In the state action plans, water, energy, forest, urban planning, everything is included. And the state assemblies, most of the ministers, they are totally ignorant about what is happening, whether the plan exists or not. So one of our major focus is what could be the mechanism that a parliamentary oversight, as we see, for the national missions, for parliament, and for the state action plans, the state assemblies. What can be the mechanism? We have been trying to approach individual MPs and MLAs. Second, this process is being driven by external funding. In the Northeast, it is GIZ, which is funding this process of making the state action plans. Nobody even in the larger ministry knows. In other places, it is the World Bank, DFID, organizations like this. And what we have been seeing, some private consultants are also involved in making action plans. So in spite of our efforts of trying to involve MLAs, other political parties, there is very little response. So what could be the mechanism? Because the danger signals are very clear. Like the coastal states, 8+2, the coastal states have no plan for coastal zones. In fact, it's very surprising, there is no coastal zone mission. India has, in the mainland India, 7,500 kilometers of coastal area, but out of the 8 missions, there are 8 missions, no coastal zone mission. So that's another kind of thing. In spite of that, the World Bank is determining, like Odisha, one of the coastals, Odisha, West Bengal and Gujarat, they are now coming out with some plans, which is, they are saying, the World Bank supported ICZMP, Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan, will be our coastal zone response. It's very dangerous because there are a lot of points in it, like mapping a vulnerability line which will displace fisher people. So similar, many other dangerous things are coming up. How can we, Daveji is there, we had a lot of discussions in Copenhagen during the conference. We had discussions with Pradeep Taptaji in Amtaji's SADC. You also probably once came. What could be the mechanism where all these concerns that we come up with, like we mentioned that there is a huge push this year in Durban for including soil carbon sequestration in agriculture and third world farmers as mitigation measures, which is extremely dangerous. So what could be the mechanism that so many MPs, few MPs and ministers and MLAs, that we can reach out, we can raise questions, or maybe at when this question is so large, we can stop this process and come out and bring them out in the public domain. Some suggestion.
Okay, I think you've put it very comprehensively, that some of the ways which by default are done and space appropriated by other actors. Now, for instance, the danger that GIZ or any other, say DFID or any other organization funding these state action plans is very clear. Whatever they are pushing at an international level, which might be opposed to us, will get fed into the ecosystem. And so therefore, you'll soon find perhaps state governments and others talking that particular language, willy-nilly, without actually really understanding the larger picture. So it's so important that we get the oversight of Parliament on this as quickly as possible. I think this is point number one. We need to get this oversight. Otherwise, there won't be any debate, okay? Now, the moment it is debated in Parliament, then, our senior sir is here. So, with your permission. So, I think oversight of Parliament is absolutely crucial for this, okay? That's one. The second is, in the case of implementation, the only parallel that I can draw where say MPs somehow they'll get, now I'm not saying it's a perfect system. I'm also not advocating that it is the system, because I'm actually against, I'm very much for more decentralized form of government, and the centrist policies need to, actually we need to get away from it, because I think India has grown. There are enough people across the country who are more to be trusted than those in Delhi. And so therefore the country can actually pull along in a much more federal way, the real federal way. So, but with that caveat, let me just say that one of the things that works, to my mind, the way my own experience is, that the Mahatma Gandhi Narega, which is a rights-based approach, allows for a good oversight. Very good oversight by members of Parliament, for the simple reason that members of Parliament are actually also chairing the monitoring and vigilance committees in their constituencies. As a result, they are able to get as much feedback from the ground as is possible and then feed it into the national thinking and national, system. So that's one. I find that as a good parallel, but with the caveats. Okay, so so therefore it is important that whatever mechanisms that we build should be such that we are able to fund it, because the state plans now because they come and they come well printed, etc. People will not, in Government of India there's nobody there who can or maybe even have the competency or the competence to actually evaluate whether that plan is good or not. And later on, when it moves into the policy framework and you find actually you made a policy which is absolutely an absurd one, then you'll suddenly realize and wake up. So that may be too late. So that kind of oversight mechanism is of utmost importance. And I think, as far as we are concerned, we are actually, in our own way, we are arguing this particular case as best as we can. That's the only thing that I can tell you. That's my response.
Thank you very much, sir. And we also heartily welcome Dr. Acharya ji, Honorable Member of Parliament. And from our point of view, he is also chair of a parliamentary committee on agriculture. So we definitely have to have more insights from you on agriculture and climate change connection. And we have also requested him to deliver the keynote address on agriculture and food security in climate change negotiations, climate change policies of India. So we आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. और जो हम लोग अभी बात कर रहे थे, is it okay if I speak in Hindi? Will that be? Yeah. मुझे लगता है ज़्यादा लोग हिंदी समझते हैं, इसलिए हिंदी में बात करें तो ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा. कि अभी जो हम लोग फिलहाल बात कर रहे थे वो ये कह रहे थे कि इंडिया के क्लाइमेट चेंज पॉलिसीज और स्टेट रिस्पॉन्स जितना है उस पे पार्लियामेंट्री ओवरसाइट बहुत ही कम है. और नेशनल एक्शन प्लान डिक्लेयर हो गया, कोई बिना कंसल्टेशन के, बिना किसी एक्सपर्ट के कंसल्टेशन के साथ, बिना अफेक्टेड पॉपुलेशन के के साथ कोई कंसल्टेशन के बगैर. उस समय कहा गया था भारत की सरकार द्वारा कि जब हम इसके मिशन प्लान्स डेवलप करेंगे तो लोगों के साथ कंसल्टेशन होगा, जब इसके फॉलोअप के लिए स्टेट एक्शन प्लान्स बनाएंगे तो लोगों के साथ बातचीत की जाएगी, अफेक्टेड पॉपुलेशन की बातचीत की जाएगी. लेकिन हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे स्टेट्स में स्टेट एक्शन प्लान पे इंगेज करने की कोशिश की है सरकार को, सिविल सोसाइटी ग्रुप्स को. लेकिन देखने में यही आया है कि स्टेट एक्शन प्लान्स लाइक आल्सो नेशनल एक्शन प्लान ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज हैव बीन कंप्लीटली कंसल्टेंट ड्रिवन प्रोसेस. और किसी में भी ये प्लान किसके लिए बन रहा है उसका जवाब नहीं है. देयर आर नो पीपल इन द प्लान्स, देयर आर नो कंसिडरेशन फॉर पीपल हु आर बीइंग अफेक्टेड, देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो कंसिडरेशन. हम लोग समझ सकते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट के पास और भी बहुत सारे प्रेसिंग इश्यूज हैं, लेकिन जिस तरह का ओवर आर्चिंग एक कंसर्न ये क्लाइमेट चेंज की पॉलिसीज लेके आ रही है, एनर्जी के कंटेक्स्ट में, वाटर के कंटेक्स्ट में, जंगल के कंटेक्स्ट में, सस्टेनेबल हैबिटेट की बात करें, हेल्थ की बात करें, इट्स सो ओवर आर्चिंग एंड द डिजाइन्स आर सो डेंजरस. मतलब हर एक स्टेट में, अगर मैं छोटे से स्टेट उड़ीसा की बात करूं तो क्लाइमेट चेंज रिस्पॉन्स के नाम पे जहां पीक डिमांड है 3000 मेगावाट की, 2000 से 3000 मेगावाट की, 60,000 मेगावाट पावर, इंस्टॉल्ड पावर क्रिएट करने की कोशिश की जा रही है. क्यों की जा रही है? ये डिमांड कहां से प्रोजेक्ट हुई है, किस बेसिस पे प्रोजेक्ट हुई है कि इतनी एनर्जी की डिमांड स्टेट को पड़ेगी आने वाले सालों में, उसका कोई जवाब नहीं है. छोटे छोटे स्टेट्स में भी यही हाल है. कम से कम कहें तो 50 गुना ज्यादा है. मतलब उत्तराखंड की बात करें तो 1600 मेगावाट की पीक डिमांड है. स्टेट चाह रही है कि 80,000 मेगावाट पावर क्रिएट किया जाए स्टेट में. कहां से ये फिगर्स आते हैं, इतने ज्यादा पावर की जरूरत क्यों है, इसका किसी के पास जवाब नहीं है. This is similar with almost all the states. It's very surprising that we could see that there's a complete unanimity among all the states that they have to have carbon credits from forests, irrespective of the fact that whatever happens with indigenous population or population living on the forest resources, all the states are unanimous that they have to have carbon credits. We have hearing it from representatives from different states that they have protected the forest. Why should not they earn carbon credits from that? I understand that they are also not completely aware of the international debate that is taking place on what is wrong in having carbon credits from the forests, and how has the experience unveiled in different countries on governments trying to earn carbon credits from forests. Similarly with agriculture too. Agriculture is, all the states are increasingly moving towards using agriculture as carbon sink and earning carbon credits from that. पानी की बात करें तो all the states are talking about new regulatory mechanisms which will move more towards complete cost recovery in terms of providing water resources and new structures. There is a clear hint of water services being privatized in so many states. There is not even single word gender in so many state plans that we have tried to look into. Not even a word on gender. So these are sort of concerns that we have been trying to bring before members of parliament, other state representatives. In terms of agriculture, all the states are talking about modern scientific agriculture. We don't understand what is modern scientific agriculture. Increasing fertilizer intensity, increasing biofuels, increasing whatnot in agriculture, so to say. There is no connection between agriculture and food security and between people, why this is required. It's very disappointing, and we will definitely seek to engage you on greater details on how we have tried to analyze different state plans. And गांववासी जी हैं हमारे बीच में, वो उत्तराखंड के सरकार से भी उन्होंने बातचीत की है. हमारे बीच में संजय पासवान जी हैं, इन्होंने बिहार में कोशिश की और सरकार से बात की कि इस पे लोगों से बातचीत की जाए और कंसल्टेशन ऑर्गेनाइज किया जाए. लेकिन as far as we know, 18 states have already finalized their draft, and more will be doing so. And this might be as a part of Government of India's strategies to put up state action plans in place to show before COP17 that we are doing great amount of work on climate change stabilization and things like that. So with these concerns, we will request you, sir, Dr. Basudeva Acharya ji, to enlighten us on how do you see that how agriculture and food security figure in climate change policies of government of India.
Friends, at the outset, I must thank the organizer of this seminar on different subjects, not on one subject. Different subjects concerning the problems being faced by the people of our country. Those who are residing in the rural areas as well as urban areas. Now you know that Indian agriculture is passing through a great crisis. And this crisis in agriculture is getting accentuated. This crisis, because of some policies which are being pursued for more than 2 decades. If you compare with pre-1991 and post-1991, you'll find that farmers committing suicides, earlier also in pre-1991, there are cases of incidents of suicides. But after 91 and from 1996 onwards, the farmer suicides, not only the number, but its intensity, and it has expanded its area from one state to another state. And in some state in particular area. And we'll find that from 1994-5 onwards, the capital formation in the agriculture has been gradually decelerating. घटते जा रहा है हमारे देश में. Now, last year or this year, our total production of food grains production is 241 million tons. We are very happy that for the first time, India could produce 241 million tons of food grains. But if we compare with China, they have 50% of cultivable land we have. But their food grain production is almost double than our food grain production. In some area, in some states, we have tried for crop intensification. We have achieved some success. But the problem, what I feel, whatever researches are undertaking in our research laboratories, we have no dearth of research laboratories throughout the country. We have 67 such laboratories, such centers on different subjects. But whatever development is being done, its application in the field is very few. जो भी हमारी जो लेबोरेटरी है जहाँ पर हम डेवलपमेंट कर रहे हैं हमारे देश में सबसे ज़्यादा एग्रीकल्चरल साइंटिस्ट है. वी हैव ए गुड नंबर ऑफ एग्रीकल्चरल साइंटिस्ट. लेकिन जो भी हो रहा है वो is not being extended to the field, to the farmers. गांव में जब जाते हैं, क्योंकि एक जब कृषि ये जो राष्ट्रीय कृषि विकास योजना is a very ambitious project that within 25 years, within 5 years, 25,000 crores of rupees would be spent during 11th 5-year plan. We fixed our physical targets as well as financial targets. But at the time of allocation, we forget about this target. And if we are not in a position to reach the financial target, it will not be possible to reach the physical target. Because our growth, we targeted for growth to the extent of 4% in agricultural production. Average is less than 3%. And the way the growth that is taking place in food grain production, in case of pulses, in case of other commodities, and the growth in the population, say if we say by 2050, what will be the growth of population and what will be the growth in our agricultural production, food grain production. Really by 2050, the growth that which we have, average growth in our country, will not be able to meet the demands of the growing population of our country. how will we be able to meet? One problem is you can find that every year our cultivable land is reducing. Cultivable land, maybe for industry, maybe for infrastructure development, that also a country need. Industrialization is necessary. Without industrialization, unemployment problem cannot be solved. That is necessary, that is required, that is needed for a country like India, a developing country like India. We need infrastructure development also for growing population of our country, but not at the cost of agricultural land, not at the cost of food grains production. I think somewhere that problem which we apprehend the country will face, nobody is seriously thinking about this. We have our own technology. I have seen, I'm not talking of hybrid, but high yielding varieties in case of paddy. There are some states where 90-95% of the seeds they use is high yielding seeds. By using that seeds, they could, they've been able to increase their production to a great extent. But what is required today, the capital formation in agriculture should be substantially increased. Now once 25 years back in the contribution from agriculture to GDP was 51%. Now service sector has taken the place of agriculture. From 51% it has come down to 15%. एक समय हमारा GDP में कृषि का जो भागीदारी था, योगदान था, वो करीब करीब 51% था. आज घटते घटते 15-16% में आ गया है. 12.5% और घट गया. हर बजट में आप देखोगे घटते घटते जा रहा है, हर बजट में, क्योंकि सब्सिडी घट रहा है. कैसे घट रहा है सब्सिडी? I can give you one example. Say subsidy in fertilizer. It is also taken into consideration, taken into account the subsidy provided for agriculture. This year budget subsidy for agriculture is 45,000 crore. Last year it was 50,000 crore. Now, within 8 months, we'll see the prices of fertilizer, starting from urea, DAP, MOP, NPK, all categories of fertilizer, how much they increase?